one-third and final time. This is Diego Calero, and this is Fearless Focus, a vlog about how to go about living life given what we currently understand in the beginning of the 21st century of what's going on in physics, philosophy, biology, psychology, and so on. My name is Diego Calero, and I'm the director of an institute in Brazil called Institute Ethics, Rationality and Future of Humanity, in Portuguese, Instituto Ética, Racionalidade e Futuro da Humanidade. And now I'm going to be talking about which ethical and moral assumptions I'm going to be taking for granted while devising my future 20 minutes in a row videos. I am now with a chronometer, which I didn't do in the previous video. I'm not sure how long it was. So I'm going to try to keep all of those videos nearby the 20-minute threshold. Let's talk about ethics a little bit. So the first thing is that in philosophy there's a very important question, which is the ethics versus the values versus fact question. And I'm going to suggest that there are 3 stages that one should go through during life relating to how they think about facts and values. So in the first stage, which I call naive bonding of facts and values, you are still naive and you think that there must be some way in which our statements of facts are actually entwined and correlated strongly with our value assumptions. So how do you go about thinking about that? Well, you basically have some sort of tradition or morality or peer group biases or a set of rules which is enforced in your society, this or in your family or in both. So this set of rules, this set of things that might tweak the way in which you think about the world, is a very important force in constituting the ways in which you think about the world, in which you think about how to act in the world in particular. And then it's quite likely that this community is going to have some sort of value, such as the idea that nature is wise or that one should protect nature. So let me talk about that for a second. There is a philosopher in Brazil who is also the curator of one of our best museums, who defends that our view of nature, our intuitive view of what nature is, has become based not on what nature actually is, but on parks. Why? Well, most people are city dwellings, most philosophers are definitely city dwellings, and they're not used to the forces of nature as they are in nature, but they go to a park and they think of it as an expression of what nature actually is. A park is not what nature looks like. A park is a well-preserved structure that stabilizes an environment in the looks that a savanna would have had, which is a very interesting fact because it means that we have reshaped our forests and we have reshaped our environment in such a way that people could, at least for a little bit of time in the day, take a look at a place that looks quite like the environment in which it is claimed that we have evolved most of our interesting cognitive abilities that we currently possess. So that's one of the ways in which you can view a park. Another way in which you can view a park is being taken care of by lots of people. A park is stable. A park has a finite, almost stable number of trees and good space distribution and a number of well-chosen species that are allowed to live there, plus a few other species that are evolving kind of randomly as evolution would like it. But it definitely does not describe what nature is like. So let me remind you of some features of nature. So nature is the creator of earthquakes, of hurricanes. Nature is tsunamis. Nature is primary succession, secondary succession, and the eventual takeover of a beach by a forest, of plateau by a mountain in the case of tectonic plates dislodging, and also other phenomena which do not have at all the level of stability that we expect from parks. Okay, so there is a big difference between nature and parks. This is a given, right? Assuming that, let's think about why do we see nature as wise, and how is that related to how we think about parks? So there are several distinct reasons for which people consider nature wise. Most philosophers reject all of them. The first one comes from religious bigotry, in which it used to be believed that mental entity of supreme powers has created either man or animals in their similarity and to look alike them. So if we were created in image of those mental super powerful entities, then there would be no particular reason to believe that our shape was not a well-designed one, and almost the perfectly designed one if you consider that the super intelligent entity is both powerful and nice. So they can create whatever they want, they're very nice, so why not create the best thing they can? And that for a very long time was considered a problem in philosophy, but gladly no one truly believes nowadays that this was the case. So yet the fundamental underlying emotion that has arisen out of that remains in the common sense thinking of most of the population. For some reason that I never understood, this is a more permanent, more intense event for women that I have known than for men. But this might be a bias of mine for several distinct reasons. So our body shapes and the body shapes of animals and the way in which our minds work are definitely not the best design that we could have ever had. Given that, which are other ways in which you can think of nature as being wise? So there is also an underlying assumption within a lot of groups, especially nowadays the ecology defender groups, and some subset of the vegetarians. I'm not claiming that those groups are right or wrong in any way, it's just a very commonly held belief among them. Also, say, New Age people and Buddhist people as well, that somehow nature represents equilibrium. That would mean that there is a series of forces in nature which ends up creating equilibrium stages in which life exists in what people would call, naively but in a very uplifting spirit, perfect harmony. So perfect harmony is also absent in whatever it is that we know about biological life and nature. Actually, even though there are a lot of interesting cooperative processes in biological life, a lot of it can be thought of as a simple either zero-sum or negative-sum dispute between different replicators, which are trying as much as they can to continue replicating. And this gives rise to individuals which are going to defend the likelihood of their genes propagating in as much as they can, even if that includes, for instance, eating their own babies, committing atrocities against other species, eating the bowels of a species that is not one's own, killing the child of a mother that you have just decided to espouse, or similar behaviors which we do not consider ethical at all. So it is funny how pervasive this belief that nature is wise is, given the level of evidence that anyone who disconsiders the music tones behind Discovery Channel documentary notices what is actually going on in terms of suffering and pleasure with natural wildlife, and also with a lot of human relations. This does not mean I take a pessimist view on the world. To the contrary, I'm a very strong optimist. I think it's amazing to be part of the most intelligent and cooperative species on the planet, not the most cooperative in the sense that it sacrifices itself more, but in the sense that it creates the tools for cooperation that could not be created even by social insects or those African moles that are actually a little bit more altruistic than we are in a biological sense. So we're very altruistic, we're very nice, I enjoy life a lot, yet it does not mean that nature is wise or that nature is good. And the bonding view on facts and values is a view in which there is this confusion which thinks that because things are what is going on, so let's say because something is actual or because something is natural, then it's probably good and it should be preserved as being a good thing. This could include a whole range of human emotions, it could include a whole range of different natural or not that natural phenomena. But the point being that at a naive point in one's life, you're going to believe that there's actually some wisdom to be taken just from the way things are as a guidance to consider how things should be. And this is patently false for several reasons which I hope to have expressed to some extent. So then comes G.E. Moore and creates the naturalistic fallacy, which is an interesting description of a phenomenon similar to the one that I have just described, in which he creates the second stage that one should go through in life, which is the stage in which you consider that there is a absolute distinction between the realm of facts and the realm of values, and those do not interact. So if you were omniscient in terms of facts, if you knew every single fact about the universe, it would still be the case that you do not know which values are more or less desirable in any way. So this is a very interesting stage in one's life, because it makes you more prone to actually thinking about every single thing that you find either in nature or in your social relations or in your life in general. You start to think about that. Oh yeah, this is a fact, but what if I could design it otherwise? It starts to focus your attention in an engineering hat. You put an engineering hat and you start thinking about everything as if, oh yeah, so life works, so love works modulated by oxytocin and vasopressin, and it works in this particular way. Could I design love to be more interesting? I mean, okay, it's naturally in the way that it is. What if I could design it to be a little bit different? Should I try to do so? Is it desirable to do so? So in the second stage of life, it is very interesting because you're going to end up thinking a lot about how things should be, and I think it's a very valuable stage, even though I currently consider that it is wrong. And the reason why I consider that it is wrong is because this fellow has convinced me that it is wrong. It doesn't seem very readable from where I can see. So this is The Moral Landscape. It's a book by Sam Harris, in which he argues for the idea that given that there is sufficient isomorphism between the minds of all humans, there's got to be also a strong correlation with the good life and the bad life, which can be found just by looking at how our nervous systems work and having a well-developed theories of psychology. And I think he makes a brilliant case for it. And if I find... Okay, and I'm going to describe now what he calls the bad life and the good life. And I hope that one has to be a hypocrite not to think that those descriptions are capturing both something that is a fact of a few of the ways in which life can be, and also a fact that highly correlates with pleasure and pain and suffering and happiness and whichever other things we value, to a point in which you have to consider that there are isomorphisms and clear-cut cases of things that are good and things that are bad to people, because people's emotional brain wiring is shaped in a particular way. So let me describe what he calls the bad life and what he calls the good life after that. So the bad life. You're a young widow who has lived her entire life in the midst of civil war. Today, your 7-year-old daughter was raped and dismembered before your eyes. Worse still, the perpetrator was your 14-year-old son, who was goaded to this evil at the point of a machete by a press gang of drugged adult soldiers. You are now running barefoot through the jungle with killers in pursuit. While this is the worst day of your life, it is not entirely out of character with the other days of your life. Since the moment you were born, your world has been a theater of cruelty and violence. You have never learned to read, taken a hot shower, or traveled beyond the green hell of the jungle. Even the luckiest people you have known have experienced little more than an occasional respite from chronic hunger, fear, apathy, and confusion. Unfortunately, you've been very unlucky, even by these bleak standards. Your life has been one long emergency, and now it is nearly over. So this is a description of a bad life. What is the description of a good life then? You're married to the most loving, intelligent, and charismatic person you have ever met. Both of you have careers that are intellectually stimulating and financially rewarding. For decades, your wealth and social connections have allowed you to devote yourself to activities that bring you immense personal satisfaction. One of your greatest sources of happiness has been to find creative ways to help people who have not had your good fortune in life. In fact, you have just won a $1 billion grant to benefit children in the developing world. If asked, you would say that you could not imagine how your time on earth could be better spent. Due to a combination of good genes and optimal circumstances, you and your closest friends and family will live very long, healthy lives, untouched by crime, sudden bereavements, and other misfortunes. So, those are examples which I think are better if taken at face value than they would have been if they were taken by what some particular ethical theories would like them to mean. So I think it is true to say that this is a description of a good life, and it is true that the other life is a bad life. I think it is true that these are facts which are not only facts about values, but they're facts about the world, because that's how they relate strongly to how evolution has engineered our brains to think of a satisfactory life and an unsatisfactory one. And it is also connected to the ways in which we think of ourselves as being, successful or unsuccessful, happy or sad, well or not that well, and so on and so forth. So from this broad perspective, I'm going to assume that it is always the case for a cognitive system which is embedded with emotions, that there's going to be things that make that cognitive system be living a better life and a worse life. It is a fact about those particular two descriptions are correlated with our mind in mind space. So of all possible minds, we know that if you're a mind like ours, then those two things are good descriptions of a good life and good descriptions of a bad life. I'm not going to subscribe directly to any form of why this is the case, such as if I was a hedonic utilitarian, then I would consider that what matters there is just the pleasure axis, which is connected to a 2 cubic millimeter area in the nucleus accumbens of the brain, and which causes happiness. And some people go all the way into defending that the only thing that matters in the world is pleasure, and the only thing that matters to be destroyed is pain. I think this is very, how can I put it? It is a very specific way of thinking about interesting and bad things in life that does not account for the complexities of all the analogies and models that I have described about how the mind works in the previous video. So I'm going to leave you with the note that I would like people to be what I call simple utilitarians. I'm going to be taking a simplified form of utilitarianism as my ethical standard during those videos. What does that mean? That means that your theory is one in which you're maxing out people's utility and minimizing people's disutility according to a particular set of non-explicit but existent rules which create discounts in various directions. So what do I mean by discounts in various directions? Well, there is a discount for future me, and this was already described in some of the ways in which I spoke about minds. So I considered that future me deserves less of my resources, efforts, and doings in general than me. One of the reasons is because he's less related to me. I also consider that there will be people who are nearer to me who deserve more of my resources. Those are the people whom I would call, say, friends, romantic relationships, and people with related goals as well. There's also going to be, for me, a discount factor for distance. So let's assume that there's a bunch of people in Neptune that we never heard of. They're going to be a little bit less ethically valued in my theory about the world than the people here. This relates both to the fact that I can cause less influence in their lives, and also that I have weaker evidence of their existence and of my ability of changing their existence for a better kind of existence. This distance is going to carry across not only time within one person or several different people by how far their relationship to me is, but also it's going to carry to, as I said, distance, like different planets. If you go even further beyond the observable universe, then there's the people who I cannot inflict causation on if they exist, and those people are going to be severely disregarded with respect to how much I value my actions in their lives, because I think it's quite unlikely that we'll ever have good evidence of how our actions influence people who are in a universe that is not causally connected to ours. The same is going to be true of different branches of quantum mechanics which are not accessible from ours, but definitely not going to be true with branches of quantum mechanics that are both successors of ours. So if our world is splitting into, say, these two worlds, I care about this person as much as I care about this person, regardless of which of my successors, Diego 1 or Diego 2, is going to be the one that actually ends up interacting with those people. Finally, I'm going to have a discount for difference in mind kind, which means that I'm going to care more for bonobos and chimps than I'm going to care for dogs. I'm going to care more for dogs than I'm going to care for chickens. And there may be a threshold of non-mindness at some point towards which I don't care at all. So my simplified form of utilitarianism is not that simple. But what is simple about it is that I'm not taking, for instance, preferences or happiness or, say, beliefs about how the world should be as my standard for utilitarianism. I'm trying to encompass all of those forms of utilitarianism in something that is a little bit broad and therefore a little bit less descriptive, and calling this simplified utilitarianism. So those are some of the ethical assumptions that I'm going to be making. I'm not going to specify how much I care about myself in relation to how much I care about the world, because sincerely, I don't think that this is a response that is stable across time or across different levels of time length of my selfness. and also because I have no idea, even if it were, how much it would be. So these are some of the ethical assumptions that are going to be underlying fearless focus, and by now you're free to take a look at whichever video most looks interesting to you, now that you know which are the background assumptions that I have while developing whichever ideas I end up developing with this vlog. Okay, so see you.